Lorison, Van der Ven, Lawrence, as well as Unsby. 4 will take a championship challenge. Only 1 can walk away, the 60 Plus Racing Adventures winner. We are in Pro Mazdas as we take to the bumps of an old Florida airfield. We are at Sebring for an international raceway showdown. 2 races here of 14 laps and 1 championship to be decided. Keep focused on this as we are getting ready for action in just 1 minute's time.
Once again, photo finish here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerrick at the line.
.95 kilometers and 17 fantastic turns of this old abandoned airfield now plays host to the final round of the championship here at the 60 Plus Racing Adventures. This has been a close championship all throughout the season. It has been one which has gone backwards and forwards, and one which inevitably will have a dramatic conclusion to it come the end of 2 races to cap off another sensational season that we have seen from the 60 Plus boys. For the time being, though, here on RaceSpotTV, I am Jake Sperry, joined, of course, with David Haynes for this one. And David, it's a 4-way scrap for the title as things stand. In qualifying terms, though, it's Bill Lawrence in the 17 who's got his first of 2 laps down, 1:58 flat. He has been able to manage a full 0.3 of a second quicker than what he was expecting to do, exactly what he needs at this stage of the championship.
Yep, exactly, Jake. Thank you so much. The racing has been very good in this series, and I think the heat is on for the final round. Very respectful driving between the competitors in this series. They know each other well, they enjoy racing together, but there is a lot of pride at stake for this championship, and I'm sure they all want their paws on that cup.
They all want the paws on the cup come the end. Let's get championship standings then up on your screen, because this is how the stage is set. Stefan Rosgen is at the top at 285 points. It is Bill Lawrence in second, just 2 points behind. Then it's a little gap to Jos van der Ven, 268. He's got a little bit of work to do, as does Mark Robertson. I'll correct myself from saying John Unsby right at the beginning of the broadcast, but Mark Robertson in 4th position, battling it out and needs a bit of help. Jos van der Ven, though, doesn't. He does a 1:57.6 and puts himself right in pole position, exactly what is needed. Bill Lawrence in second. Mark Robertson now moves up into third. Where on earth is Stefan Rosgen in all of this? Across the line for a 1:57.7. He moves to second place on his first flying lap, and he's got time to find that extra 1/10 of a second.
Exactly, Jake. Nearly a 2-minute lap here. There's a lot of corners, a lot of places to find time, but a lot of places to lose time. It's very difficult to put together a perfect lap around here. So I'm sure all of these guys can improve still as we go along. There's a lot to play for still with 3 minutes left in the session.
Let's go on board with the 60 as RaceSpotTV, the reigning champion, heads himself out of the hairpin and towards the Fangio chicane. Not really a chicane really as such. You're always full throttle through all of it as he angles himself to the left-hand side. Cones on the left indicate marking boards as he heads into the right-hand of Cunningham Corner, 90 degrees. Now moving away up past the top of the circuit through this fantastic sweeping lefts and rights before reaching Tower Corner. This fantastic 90 degrees. Go careful on the exit. It's so easy to push wide. But for the moment here, David, looking good heading through Bishop.
Exactly. Fantastic line through Tower there. I really like that late apex. Carried plenty of speed. Stefan Roastgen's driven well all season, taken plenty of wins, and now really putting a lap together here. It looks smooth, which means it's probably fast in a car like this Slicks and Wings Pro Mazda.
And now on the Ullman Straight, heading towards Sunset Bend, the final corner, the corner of 1,004 lines. Which one's the correct one? Does anybody truly know? As RaceSpotTV gets a lot of power coming off of the exit, using all of the track width, trying to extract as much time as possible. Can he find gains? Answer is no, because he, I believe, has just done himself a time which will not count in the end. He did improve.
Improved, but it just wasn't enough. Now 14 thousandths behind Jos van der Ven. So very, very close.
Very close indeed, and very, very unlucky that he did not get close enough to make exactly what he wanted happen. But that is sometimes the way that it goes. So Stefan RaceSpotTV agonizingly close here, David, but not quite in the position to make himself get what he wanted out of this one. But crucially, ahead of Bill Lawrence, which will come back and help later on.
Yeah, precisely. So looking like he will start out of second place. You can still make a lot happen from there, even on the first lap around a circuit like this, Jake.
You certainly can do, as we are getting ready to grid up in just a moment's time, as right now we have got ourselves a little bit of action still left to go. I'm having a few issues on my end of things, but for the time being, at least it seems that it is grid time indeed here at this track. So let's get it up on your screen. This is how things will look. Jos van der Ven snatches pole position from Stefan RaceSpotTV, who could not do enough in qualification. Bill Lawrence will start this one from third, with Mark Robertson in fourth position as we move down the board. Stephen Karkner, great qualifying for him in fifth position. Hasn't had the best of luck this season. Jared Fallorison from sixth position. Three Team Otto cars as Richard Coulomb and Captain John Morgan in 8th position. Manning Grinnan is 9th, with John Unsby rounding out the top 10. Then you look down further, Gianni Raspado, Kenneth Baldwin, and we'll cycle on through the rest of the grid. The likes of Kenneth Duma, Bob Kern, you can see down there, David Riley and Charles Gilly, 19th and 20th position, with William Lee, the 21st of 21 vehicles, looking to take to the starting grid for the first race of the evening. This is going to be a tough race for drivers. It's bumpy. It is going to be very, very aggressive. One mandatory pit stop, remember, is required in both races, so you've got to be right on the money to make things happen. But, of course, they do have that one pace lap behind the iRacing Roof First safety car, which is going to be so paramount to the starts, because, as we know here, David, a rolling start is a massive advantage to that driver who starts from position number 1 in this final race.
That is exactly right, Jake. That driver, Jos van der Ven, will control the field once the pace car pulls in, and then that allows him the advantage of choosing when to go. Will always have a lead of at least everyone else's reaction times going down the straight, but the draft, the slipstream in these cars, I imagine will be relatively strong around the few straights that we've got here at Sebring. I think second place for Stefan Rostjan isn't that much of a disadvantage.
But it's not a disadvantage to Jos van der Ven, and remember, there's not really much points gap here. It's only 35-ish for a race victory, so they've really not got much margin to work with, but it's the 2-point margin that's got to be so careful. What Bill Lawrence will have to manage here through the majority of this race, that big 2-point gap which Lawrence will be trying to bring down at either this opportunity or the next. The last thing he can afford to do is let Stefan Rostjan win either of these races tonight, because, David, that will be championship over if that is to occur.
Precisely. The way the point scoring works within the round, we have 2 races, and it's effectively you score points of your best result between the 2 races. That means, theoretically, Stefan Rostjan could wrap this one up in the first race. I think we're definitely hoping that it goes to the second race to decide the champion.
I think a lot of people do, and as we all understand, this is going to be a race in which I think drivers are now just going to have to feel out where they are. Jos van der Ven, Club Benelux, he has been electrically quick all season long. He knows how to be right there up at the front, and he has had his own opportunities come and go as they make their way through that tower corner and down towards Bishop Le Mans and the Ullman Straight. A very, very important race here for a lot of drivers, but they understand this is the last chance in the season here to make a name for yourself. If you haven't really done anything so far, David, now's the time you've got to go out there and impress. And this is where I'm looking at those 3 green cars, or those 2 green cars in that back of shot that we just saw. The Team Otto cars looking like they could have a good run today.
Exactly. Always good to have a teammate, always good to have a friend out there in the race. As I said, I think especially on the back straight coming in towards Sunset Bend, I think there's a relatively strong slipstream down that straight. If they work together and don't fight, then that's an advantage to both of them. As thankfully we're coming most of the way around this lap, and we're going to be going racing very soon.
We certainly will do, and for that pace car, it is a long, long trek on that Ullman Straight. Cars at the back weaving, trying to get some heat into the tyres, but this is going to be one very, very tough race to try and get correct first time by through the corner of 1004 lines at Sunset Bend, and it's all on the pace of the 167 machine. Jos van der Ven, Parrot on the left-hand side. Pace car dives down in. Let's get underway. Green flag in the air, and we are getting going here at the circuit of Sebring as it's 3 wide, looking to try and push on the outside. It was a good start from Jos van der Ven, who's already clear. Florison gets second, pretty good. Middle of the pack, fighting 3 wide, but for the moment, I believe that's one of the Italian Turtles on the inside, holding station, all clean for the moment as Florison continues to try and have his own battle. Rostjan in second position, exactly where he needs to be, behind Jos van der Ven, just trying to stave the gap. Alain Prosting the race as things stand here, David. It is a clean start, it's a good start, and it's a very, very intense start at that here at Sebring.
Exactly, Jos van der Ven doing exactly what he needs to do, but Stefan Rostjan critically staying absolutely in that battle for the lead right now. And I think a great job by everyone, make it through that first turn cleanly. These open wheel cars, you bump wheels, it's not necessarily going to end pretty, but everyone gave plenty of space, plenty of respect, plenty of patience, and now we've got that full grid storming towards completing the first lap of this 14-lap race. And Stefan Rostjan taking an interesting different line through there than Jos van der Ven, taking a different entry to Tower, and I think it's working for him, Jake.
Yeah, he had a pretty good run there coming out of Tower. You saw how Jos van der Ven was a lot later getting to that outside left, himself a lot less time to angle up the line into that Tower corner, but at the moment he couldn't do anything on his run, which he so desperately needed to do to get himself through Le Mans and onto the Ulmann Straight. No DRS for these Pro Mazda vehicles, as it's going to be one of those races where the draft becomes more vitally important. It is crucially a 5 car breakaway, at the front of the field. One disappearing from the back as it's a wide line being taken by Florison. Look down the inside because there's no one goes off in the background there. I didn't quite catch who that was. It was Mark Robertson, and that could just be championship hopes over with that one bit of contact. Replay up on screen for you now. Brought to you by Andwell Designs, the official graphics partners here at RaceSpotTV. Into the wall with oversteer, trying to save the car. The suspension's already damaged. Big snap of oversteer and bang into the tyres. We're going to stay on the replay because Rocegen has run himself into his own issues. We're going to cut the camera here towards turn number 1, and Rocegen heading himself through this fantastic section, just runs wide, spins around and gets himself in the grass. Not what he wants. He does have a second chance, but he certainly didn't want to use it, David.
Exactly not. A little bit of a sympathy spin there, I suppose. Coming through the first turn, the rear just gets taily, maybe held the throttle too wide over a bump, of which there is no shortage of in almost every corner around here. And so he'd get back out there by the looks of things. But with an opportunity to have sealed it up in the first race, it looked like that might not happen, which is good for us, but not good for Stefan Rocegen, potentially throwing away his first opportunity at the championship.
He's still got a lot of time. Let's not forget this much here, David, because we know just how this can go as Karkner is all over the cones, heading through Tower Corner and pushing a little bit wide as well. Alpers now, he gets put under pressure by Bob Kern, trying to find a way through in that purple and yellow livery outfit. There comes the green cannon of Otto, as there is, I believe, John Martin going around side the both of them. Oh, that's brave, getting back on the curb, trying to sort it out and get a 2-for-1 special in on the supermarket. And look at this, fantastic battling it towards the mid-pack.
Yep, fanning out wide as they dare go on that back stretch. There's plenty of room and then some. Like I said, the slipstream looking like it definitely gives you 2 or 3 tenths. And hello, here's Stefan Rocegen looking to maybe take that wide line through Sunset. He seems to prefer that someone in the barrier there.
Yeah, that was one right in the rear, getting in the barrier. It's the 066 machine of Charles Gilly, who isn't necessarily the quickest, but he certainly does know how to battle hard with drivers, and in the end, he pays the price for that one. It was all getting congested in that middle pack, and that's not the right place to have it. Still more battling going on then as Bob Kern still tries to find a way through, as there is Rocegen trying to find a way past one more vehicle, but for the time being, Bob Kern will just have to sit back and loses a few tenths of a second here and there. That's not ideal in terms of what is wanted in this one, but for the moment at least, Rocegen trying to get past Riley. He's going to look then to the inside to try and make this one happen. And can he get the move sorted? Well, on the brakes he will try and look, and he will get right down on them and comfortably make work of Riley behind.
Indeed, looks like that moves Stefan Rocegen up into 13th place. You can see 12th in front of him, you can see 11th in front of him. We've seen before, when Stefan Rocegen's got the pedal to the metal, there's almost no one in this field quicker than him. That's a man driving with some steely determination who knows what's at stake right now.
Does know what is at stake. We've got other battles though in the field, but let's go back to Rocegen because straight through on Bob Kern. He will try going to the outside, just enough room given at Bishop, but he's on that outside line, which is going to mean that Kern will stay side by side, but gives the position away through that right-hander at Le Mans, heading towards the Ulmann Straight, and just like that, Rocegen picks off another target that he so desperately wanted to in this pack, and that's going to be very useful at the front of the field. Jos van der Ven currently holds the advantage, and a pretty sizable one at that as well. The gap is a sweltering 3.3 seconds, but it did come down by 4 tenths over the course of that last lap, which will be a little worrying for Jos van der Ven. Just keeping an eye out as there has been a change for position. That's Kenneth Baldwin falling behind John Unsby, who now moves up into 6th position.
Great battling. You see 1 or 2 cars potentially taking their pit stop early. But someone has had some drama in Sunset Bend there, which I'm sure was not the first time we're going to say that.
It was David Riley who took that wide line, got outside onto the bumps, and well, the suspension is very unforgiving. Very lucky, actually, was the car of Jack Turner trying to make his way onto pit road. Just managed to see at a very difficult unsighted corner there, that final corner, Sunset Bend. Very difficult to see and just about managed to. I remember that one 12-hour race, David, where everybody seemingly hit the barriers when water and oil spilt. This circuit does not forgive and forget. Nice battle going on. Kern trying to find a way past Joel Martin right now. They were side by side. They still are as they make their way up towards Cunningham Corner. Kern stuck on the outside. He's not close enough to go and make that dive. Not enough confidence there. Joel Martin has another corner.
And Stefan Rostron got to the front of this pack very quickly, but he's not necessarily pulling away from it in any hurry. These guys having a great scrap behind him and enjoying some of the benefit of pulling along in his slipstream.
Oh, yes, they are. Nice little train going on then. Kenneth Doomer on the rear of it. Got Bruce Poole, Kenneth Baldwin, John Unsby, and then Jared Florison in 5th position at the moment. The train that is crawling its way down this Ullman Straight, looking at for Sunset Bend for the 4th time out of 14 laps worth of racing. Still, no leaders deciding they want to take their pit stop early here. Unsby taking a much tighter line than a lot of other drivers were in that situation. But once again, we have to look at Stefan Rostron here, David, because he's on the attack. There's Richard Coulomb, and that didn't take long at all because that gap has been scythed down and is already looking at turn number 1 as an opportunity. Not going to find it. Maybe look at 3.
Yeah, exactly. There's not an opportunity that Stefan Rostron won't jump at, and he's absolutely setting up Richard Coulomb, getting in his mirrors, maybe getting in his head, to throw out a little bit of a cliche in motorsports broadcasting these days. But look at that tight line. Stefan Rostron always very, very good at getting the car towards the apex, and now I think he's going to have a go of it.
He does. He moves to the inside under the Mobil 1 footbridge and now trying to get on the brakes so much later than Richard Coulomb, who was left with nowhere to go on that outside. And that's another position picked up for Stefan Rostron, back inside the top 10, which is going to be a crucial number, but a long distance to Kenneth Doomer, a full 9 seconds that he will have to find if he wants to make that push. But if they start battling in front, and Poole and Baldwin are getting a little bit closer to each other here, gap down under 0.4 of a second here, David, this one could suddenly just fall back into Rostron's hands. Its damage limitation here in this opening race needs something to happen to Lawrence.
Yep, exactly. And look, with a pit stop that these guys still need to make, I think there's a lot of opportunity for Stefan Rostron to claw some of that gap back, like Bill Lawrence is doing to Jos van der Ven slightly over the last 2 laps.
That's very, very true. Bill Lawrence is chasing down Jos van der Ven, has taken 0.8 of a second out in the last 2 laps alone on Jos van der Ven, and well, we'll see if the difference is the same. It's another 0.4 that get chopped off. That gap has come down to just 2.7 seconds as here's Gerard Florison all of a sudden, who's had a big spin coming out of Sunset Bend, and that is a massive moment, all on his merry lonesome, and he just gets on that outside, struggles to turn the car in the grass, in the tyres, round he goes, very lucky to keep it outside of the retaining wall, does try and go back on circuit backwards, and I think he just about got away with it without getting disqualified.
Well, the way he's taken that pit entry there, you can sometimes pick up a penalty for that.
I think he has.
But, yeah. So, not ideal losing time on track and potentially losing time in the pits. Great battle here, though. I'm guessing that's Manning Grinnan chasing down John Morgan for 3rd place. Both of these guys up 5 positions from where they started, battling for what's the last spot on the podium right now. Manning Grinnan looking pretty good with a little bit of slipstream as they're going to come up on the back straight, the Ullman Straight, in not too long.
Both drivers with nothing to lose, and of course on Fridays we do see how Manning Grinnan can be a big force in the official series races. Don't count out the fact that he's 60 plus, he can still fight it out with the best of them through this Le Mans section on lap 6 out of 14. Half distance score complete at the end of the next lap. And does he have a good enough toe to go and make that run? He is within touching distance. It is a strong draft that you find in these Pro Mazdas, but not enough, it seems, at the moment at 236 kilometers an hour before lightly hitting the brakes. But a big lunge down to the inside. Room being given by Captain Morgan, who picks up the traction off the exit and gets the position just for the moment. But there's another chance heading towards turn number 1. But again, it's going to have to be a long shot if anything's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. You know, 1,000 lines, as we say, there is through Sunset Bend. I think that this kind of car, a lot of grip, not as much horsepower, definitely favors a line that carries the speed and has the smoothest run, the highest minimum apex speed compared to some other cars. We see drivers really setting it up to get the power down early on the exit in cars that maybe have less grip and more horsepower than this. Also, we saw down the Ullman Straight there, Bill Lawrence set the fastest lap of the race so far, clawing more time out of Jos van der Ven. That's now a 2.5 seconds for the lead in front of these guys. First through to fourth, giving us some fantastic racing as well.
They certainly are. Jos van der Ven's gap 1 second at the front of the field, and only 2 drivers did 1:57.6 that last time by. One was Bill Lawrence, the other, the championship leader, Stefan Rosgen, who tries to hunt down Kenneth Duma for another position. But still, it is no change between John Morgan and Manning Grinnan, who's Grinnan slightly misses the apex there through the tower corner. Some of the curbs here are extensively high, and you have to be careful about which curbs you can attack and which curbs you can't, especially in cars with such fragile suspensions as these here, David.
Yes, even if you set them up specifically for these bumps, I think a very stiff open wheel car like this, they're never going to like them. You're just going to get them to tolerate them or be a little more forgiving. And oh, that shot there, Bill Lawrence right in the slipstream of Jos van der Ven. But I think there's a little tweak to the front left of Bill Lawrence's wing. Maybe not helping him, but Manning Grinnan still close. Can't do anything about it. Taking that different line again. Will he pit this time potentially? No. Just taking that tighter inside line. And they'll go side by side down the main straight. He'll cross the line in front. Will he hold on to it into turn 1? Looks like he probably will. Great move, Manning Grinnan up into third.
And that was all because John Morgan was caught on the marbles on the outside of the corner as John Unsby tries to hold off Kenneth Baldwin, and in fact just about does. But look at the run Baldwin's going to get heading to turn 3. Not committed enough on the brakes to go and make that one happen, but that's some pretty strong driving then from John Unsby. That was a good run. Rosgen sets the purple lap then. Fastest lap of the day, 1:57.365. I raise, he says, your fastest lap, and I'll go 3/10 faster than you, Bill Lawrence. So now he finds himself really attacking as we do have ourselves a little bit of a spin further back.
Wally Molesby getting in us to a spin and then a little bit of contact, but different spin than what we've seen in Sunset before. He lost the rear of that car very, very early. Very significant damage on it as well. And to point out, Jake, that 57.365 of Stefan Rosgen, nearly 0.3 seconds quicker than the pole position time for this race. So that's not only the quickest lap of this race, it's the quickest lap we've seen all night.
Well, you have to feel for Bruce Poole and the Wally Molesby incident. He thought that Molesby was going to hold his line. He didn't. He went to the inside to try and stay as safe as possible, and Bruce Poole just didn't get the message and got a nice clobbering as a result in that one. But Stefan Rosgen is having to put in qualifying lap times. This is almost the Nigel Mansell situation here, David. The fact that he is having to put lap after lap to try and make things happen. Kenneth Duma is going to be a standing target. He's going to be standing at the bus stop and seeing, what can I do? The answer is not much at all, as John Unsby gets a little bit flustered over the radio as through goes Stefan Rosgen. And I think Unsby, yes, certainly was a little bit worried as Baldwin decides to come down in and make a stop. Rosgen is starting to storm as in comes Bill Lawrence to make his first stop, and only hopefully.
Indeed, quite a few people now deciding just after halfway is a great time to take the pit stop. So Kenneth Baldwin, Richard Coulomb, Bill Lawrence from second place, though, taking his pit stop. Hopefully when he gets back out there, he'll set some very quick laps. I'm sure that's what his strategy is reliant upon.
And some draft really helping Stefan Rosgen on that last lap. 156.995. The gap to the leader is down to 16.5 seconds as he tries desperately to chase that down. But crucially enough, he only has 6 laps to chase 16 seconds. He won't get to the leaders, but he's got to try and get to Bill Lawrence as quickly as he can with the pit stop. Maybe Manning Grinnan and John Morgan can be a little bit of help in terms of points, because as we know, they are fighting very, very closely for now what is second position on the road, net third on the track, as they have just kept it line astern as things have stayed and not really had too much to worry about in terms of pushing the vehicle too hard. In terms of where Bill Lawrence has come out, he's got Paulo Preto just in front. This will be full position here, David, but Paulo Preto has no obligation, despite being the slower vehicle, to let Bill Lawrence go.
Exactly, that could go one of two ways. One, it could hold up Bill Lawrence and let Jos van der Ven build a gap. Or if Bill Lawrence gets him at the right spot, uses some of the draft, it could help him set a quick lap, like I think is what helped Stefan Rosgen put in that 156.995. It could go either way for Bill Lawrence, depending on how he can take it.
And into the pits comes Jos van der Ven, your race leader. Grinnan in, Morgan in. Does Unsby and Rosgen decide to follow suit and dive down onto the lane? You can see that Unsby is, and Rosgen was trying to jump him onto the lane, and he gets caught. And that's the last thing you want coming onto pit road, getting stuck behind someone a little bit pedestrian. That's going to be costing Stefan Rosgen in terms of time. Where is Bill Lawrence through the corner of 1004 lines and having to take an alternative line to get around Paulo Preto, and will do so on the outside as Preto dives down onto the lane. Out and away will come Jos van der Ven, but look behind him, they're too wide as John Morgan has jumped Manning Grinnan in the stop, and crucially Bill Lawrence has kept himself ahead of Stefan Rosgen, but has been jumped by the pair of them. Now he's got to get past Manning Grinnan, now he's got to get past John Morgan as Bill Lawrence, and thinking about the inside, he's now down into 4th position, and that was not part of the script.
Exactly, and then he's tried to make the run of it while he had the momentum. The other guys were slow off the pit lane. He's not managed to do it, so now he's going to have to sit behind, reminding you that the championship leader, Stefan Rosgen, leads Bill Lawrence by just 2 points. Barring any catastrophes for them, those are the two we've got our eyes on for the championship tonight.
They certainly are, and as things look at the moment, it is Jos van der Ven who leads. Bill Lawrence is in 4th position, and Stefan Rosgen is in 6th, as now they battle behind for 7th position. Kenneth Baldwin and Kenneth Duma having a nice little ding-dong battle at the moment. Bob Kern is yet to pit. He is, out of all of these drivers, the net race leader, and that's something that I did forget to notice now as John Morgan comes under pressure. Kern is due in sometime in the next 5 laps or so, 4 when he crosses the line. Look how close Manning Grinnan is, trying desperately to find a place, and I think Bill Lawrence isn't going to be comfortable with this. He can't afford to lose a position and give opportunity away to Stefan Rosgen. That will leave more work in the second race.
Exactly. Wide entry, late apex. Bill Lawrence doing everything to get power off Le Mans corner, down the Ullman straight. But the car in front of him has the draft from John Morgan, and it doesn't let Bill Lawrence get close enough. So again, takes a late turn in, late apex, carrying as much speed as he can. And John Morgan might lose that one to Manning Grinnan. Once again, poor run off the corner.
Oh, look at
Bill
this.
Lawrence is going to try and take some as well.
He's going to take one. He thinks about 2, but Grinnan is far too aggressive through the corner. How aggressive? Too aggressive. Out into the kitty litter. And there's a gift there from Bill Lawrence, who takes 2 positions in the blink of 1 corner. That's some fantastic driving from Bill Lawrence. Seeing the mistakes, seeing the opportunities. 2 corners, 2 mistakes for Morgan and for Grinnan. And he just got past both of them with poise and precision. That's why he's a former champion in this league. And that's why he's fighting for one more championship against Stefan Rosgen. That is artistry in motion as Grinnan locks up, trying to get it so late on the brakes. Oh, he's off! And in the fence! Wow.
My word, the pressure truly has gotten to him there. He's gone in too deep to the corner and then trying to get the throttle down too early. Well, we're going to get a replay of it, and some of it will speak for itself. Manning Grinnan maybe just trying too hard.
He was very early on the power, too early on the power, in fact, and that one has hurt him his race results. He wasn't fighting for the championship. It does promote, though, Stefan Rosgen into a top 5 position, which will be very, very useful between now and the end of this event. Mark Robertson, though, don't discount him. He makes his way just about down the inside at Cunningham Corner there on Bob Kern. That's another crucial position that has been gained from Kern, who did pit on that last lap. That moves Robertson now up into 9th position out on track. Not much he can do to save this as Kenneth Duma tries to get back at Kenneth Baldwin. This one into Le Mans. You got to be brave to do it here. Look, running wide there is the red car of Baldwin, as now Duma looks to try and pick a run up off of the exit. He doesn't have it compared to Kenneth Baldwin, as Baldwin will survive for another day. Now Rosgen's got to be careful here. Battle on as he looks to try and get past John Unsby.
This for 4th position. Stefan Rosgen with a very tight apex there, getting the throttle open early, I'm sure, and straight into that draft, straight into that slipstream. Defensive line from John Unsby.
Thinks about trying to hold it. Big, powerful wide line, but Rosgen's going to go too deep, and he's going to run off into the same kitty litter as Manning Grinnan. Sully up the tyres, and Unsby holds on for another day, and that's going to be telling, as Rosgen now starting to get a little bit impatient here. This is the last position that he can possibly gain, barring anything happening between Lawrence and Morgan or Jos van der Ven, who are 11 and 12 seconds down the road respectively. Look again from Stefan Rosgen. Thinks about the inside, pushing almost the Ryan Hunter-Ray line, still decides he wants to go to the outside, still denied at every stage to try and make a move. He is clearly faster than John Unsby, who is blocking so effectively, better than a martial artist, as he now looks to try and go to the outside all the way off the circuit, trying to make the move at Cunningham, and still it won't materialize.
He is making Stefan Rosgen work, and you're exactly right. This is almost hand-to-hand contact. Float like a butterfly, sting like John Unsby.
Oh, you bet it is here, David, as now surely Rosgen can pick up a run here, heading towards Bishop. Surely there is a line available. He thought about the inside. He thought better of it. Moves to the outside to try and make it happen. Unsby tries to squeeze him down to the inside. Surely you've run out of alternatives. Pushes wide, forces Unsby to try and lift out slightly, and Stefan Rosgen will finally get the position up into 4th, and that one took some work, as John Unsby, well, you had to say he made sure that Stefan Rosgen worked hard for it, and by golly he did, as this race now has just 2 laps to go here at the circuit of Sebring for race number 1 of the evening. Jos van der Ven 3.6 seconds down the road, and it will take miracles now for Bill Lawrence to find himself a chance of getting through, and now he's got a little bit of lap traffic to deal with as well going on, but we do have some other great battles, and it's this one. Duma versus Baldwin. Baldwin lost the position, but he'll come straight back at turn number 1, looking down to the inside, and there is a change of position, but here comes an up and under.
Potentially, as we watch the battle of the Kenneths, Baldwin leads Duma, but it's not over, and someone's around in the background. Mark Robertson.
Again?
Has he made contact with the wall? I think he's just kept it out, but that first corner catching a lot of people out. Stefan Rosgen's found oversteer there. He's found understeer there. Let's see what Mark Robertson had. I think it's, he's corrected. He spun it around and just avoided backing it into the tyres.
But he's very lucky that he hasn't, and he's just come out behind Gianni Raspaldo out on circuit. So Robertson having a few issues, and it's not like the track conditions are very difficult here, David. It's only a 32-degree track, which is average for this sort of place. Winds 2 kilometers an hour. That's not making a factor. These vehicles really do not like that change onto that bumpy concrete instead of the asphalt. It's a different braking property. It's what makes this so tough to get correct at Sebring.
Exactly. It's one of those things that makes Sebring really stand out. The real life drivers, well, most of them love it, and someone's around there.
That's Bruce
and
Paul.
making a 3-point turn of it to try and get it going. I prefer that to an unsafe rejoin, though.
I certainly do as well. I just got on the gravel or on the dirty parts of the grass. Decided that he tried to get off the circuit to try and make the turn. Couldn't make it all happen. Decides 3-point turn is the best option. And 3-point turn he does to get back on circuit with a lot of damage on that front wing. But the white flag has come out. And it is the final lap of the event. Gianni Raspaldo under pressure. Here's Mark Robertson desperately trying to find a point as he sees his championship now all but over with the positions as they are in this one. And Robertson does gain the position on Gianni Raspaldo and moves himself then up into 13th position out on track as there's a spinner, and that's Kenneth Baldwin at turn number 1. He goes for a 360, he saves it and gets back going again. There on the inside, no contact with the curb, just a back stepped away, and he manages to get himself almost a Pazzini spin in rally cars to get himself back going. He's now behind Bob Kern in all of this. So late changes. John Unsby going incredibly slow off his own accord as well, as he's managed to run into issues. Has he run himself out of fuel potentially?
He had a very short pit stop. He had a 7-second pit stop compared to almost everyone else did maybe 10 seconds. He might have underfueled that car
it's
quite
sputtering.
Seriously.
Yeah, just 60 kilometers an hour, and John Unsby now a threat to other vehicles. I think he's not going to make it home from here. He's got over half a lap to go, and even I don't think that he's got himself the opportunity to make things happen. Still got Duma versus Karkner. We'll keep an eye on that one to the end, because now for Jos van der Ven, this is what he needed. Points, and points quickly, but the issue is Bill Lawrence in second position negates almost all of the points haul that he will get. It will be Jos van der Ven who rounds the final corner, and he will take the victory, the best that he could do in race number 1. But just like that, almost going down onto pit road, that shall do it. That is Van der Ven's title challenge over, with Bill Lawrence finishing in second position just for the time being. Van der Ven's done all that he could do in that race and wins this one. Stefan Rosgen, what a recovery drive to get himself back into 4th position. John Morgan with an underrated 3rd. Karkner has made his way past Kenneth Duma on the final lap, and from where he was in 8th position, he gets a top 5 out of it. Now that's what I call a last lap, David.
That's something for it indeed. Now, with Bill Lawrence in 2nd, Stefan Rosgen in 4th, that's a 7-point swing to the advantage of Bill Lawrence, but the racing's not done, boy oh boy.
Bob Kern is out of fuel as well, and he's now got to coast his way around Sunset Bend. This will allow the likes of Bruce Poole to find a way through. I think Franz Brink may just be too far away. Well, going at 38 kilometers an hour, I think you're going to need a little bit of help, just sputtering, trying to get the last of the vehicle to get himself over the line. I think Bob Kern will learn, and he will understand, okay, it's slightly more fuel for the next one, as he will crawl over to the line. I think Franz Brink is going to steal it. Nice little 3-car battle, actually, at the back of the pack here, involving Gilly, Grinnan, and McIntosh. McIntosh makes the mistake, and that gives Manning Grinnan 1 position. I'm not sure he'll get 2, and I think Bob Kern is going to fall agonizingly short here, David, from the end of the line, and that will put him 1 lap down.
That's an unfortunate one. Obviously, Manning Grinnan had that car repaired somewhat, and now going to take the finish line. Could have been a podium for him, but unfortunately, that issue. So now he gets 19th place.
If that, because he will drop down behind some others as well. So down into 22nd position at least, with William Lee, the last one to come across the line. Jack Brabham pushed his car across the line here to win in the 1958 World Championship. You cannot push your car here. Results then up on screen. And what a victory it was for Jos van der Ven. He took it by 3.1 seconds in a controlled win, with Bill Lawrence coming home second, keeping his championship hopes alive and taking the championship lead as things stands going into the final race of the season, which will happen after this. John Morgan finishes 3rd, with Stefan Rosgen recovering to 4th place. Stephen Karkner gets 5th ahead of Kenneth Duma, with Kenneth Baldwin in 7th position. Joel Martin is 8th, with Richard Coulomb 9th, and Mark Robertson, through all of the drama come the end, rounds out your top 10. Gianni Raspaldo gets 11th, with Paolo Preto in 12th. Jack Turner, good run for him, in 13th, up 5 positions, with Gerard Florison in 14th place. David Riley 15th, with Bruce Poole there in 16th. Then you got Franz Brink, Charles Gillet, Manning Grinnan, and Ken McIntosh, who round out the top 20. And those who got one lap down, most down to fuel issues, that would be John Unsby, Bob Kern, Wally Molesby of his own accord, same for Ragnar Steinmern, and also William Lee too. So they will have to keep on pushing for another day. But who we do have in the commentary booth is Jos van der Ven, who is standing by with David Hayes, your race winner.
Jos, always amazing to take a race win, but unfortunately with Bill Lawrence in second, it doesn't put you in a chance to take the championship. A great race for you though.
Yeah, it was a great race. After the first lap, I think Stefan had a spin, and I suddenly saw a gap of 3 seconds. And I tried to focus on the gap and stay in front of it, of the rest of the field. But yeah, no chance to take the second place or the win in the championship.
And I should say congratulations on your pole position. A stunning lap there, even if just 14 thousandths clear of second place. We talk about how bumpy it is here at Sebring, and we've seen that catch some people out. What does it take to make this Pro Mazda fast around a lap at this tricky circuit?
Well, I just had a few practice laps today, and I found the setup pretty soft, so the bumps didn't matter too much today for me. So I had a worse experience on with other cars on Sebring and also with this car, but the setup was pretty good.
That's good to hear. Still catching some people out in turn 1. You have to breathe out of the throttle a little bit, treat that with some respect, do you?
Yeah, what I don't brake too much in that at least in the first corner. Just shift back to the 5th gear and then let it roll into the corner. That's all.
Well, fantastic. Also, we saw some people struggle with maybe with their fuel calculations, with taking enough fuel. You were maybe a little more conservative with the pit stop. What's your thoughts with that and taking fuel at the pit stop?
Well, I have this nice little program, JRT, Joel Real Timing, and that gives me always a good indication of the fuel I need, and so I took 2 gallons, 7.6 liters, so, and that's yeah, maybe conservative, but good enough to finish the race.
All right, thank you so much, and hopefully, I guess you'll be looking for another win in race 2.
I'll try to, yes. Thank you.
Awesome, enjoy yourself, and I hope you've enjoyed this season. Jake, who are we going to go to now?
Well, we have the brand new championship leader joining us, and that is Bill Lawrence. Bill, from a 2-point deficit to a now 7-point lead, you now know that Roosjen, who finished in 4th position, now must finish top 2. And for you to gain any more points, you have to win the next race. A win guarantees you the title. Second, it's in the hands of Stefan Roosjen. What do you have to do now to understand this second race, and how much more pressure do you have to deal with now that you have the championship lead in your hands?
Well, it's a bit of pressure for sure. I can say that without doubt. And what I have to do is pray and beg for mercy.
Well, you can pray and beg for mercy as much as you like. Let's just talk through the pit stop stage just for a moment, because you found yourself dropping 2 positions in that phase. Was it a longer stop, a more conservative stop?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure. I haven't been good in pits. That's true throughout the series, but I thought I had a good one today. I did get caught up behind a slower driver who was going to pit, and that was just enough to scrub the enough seconds off that maybe 2 seconds or so. I just couldn't get ahead of Manning and Morgan, I think.
Your championship rival made a mistake today. You have not as of yet. You've got one opportunity to put more points on the board. Is it your time for another title?
Well, I'm hoping so, but there's all good drivers up here, so we'll just see how it goes. I'll try my best. And when Stefan lost it there, I was very fortunate. I think Steve Karkner got into the back of me, and somehow the car still handled okay. I don't know how it looked, but it seemed to be okay.
Well, before we let you go, any shout-outs, any sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank or give, thank you for helping to?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Team Morgan, which I'm a member, and we took the team championship this year. A good bunch of guys, and we communicate well together and drive well as a team. So big shout out to them. Thanks again to the administrators, and as always, thanks to RaceSpot for your coverage.
No worries at all. Bill Lawrence coming home in second position. Now has the championship lead. David Haynes standing by with the driver who finished in third. And that was John Morgan.
John Morgan, third position for you. Some great battling out there, particularly with Manning Grinnan. How did that one look from your cockpit?
It was a great race between Manning and myself. We seemed to be pretty evenly paced. Whoever was behind could sort of stay close because of the draft. We went in the pits together, and it was great racing coming out together, and actually got in front of Bill. And Bill's a little quicker than I think both of us, so he worked his way by. And then it was unfortunate to see Manning spin out, but yeah, it was a great race with Manning.
Now, your club Florida, any home ground advantage here at Sebring?
Other than having been there a few times, no. It is one of my favorite tracks. I don't know, just some tracks sort of suit your eye and the way they flow and work together, and this is one of them. So, and the funny thing is Daytona is as well. So, but yeah, it is a sort of a home track for us.
And does that help you sort of whisper to the bumps? Are they nicer to you than they are to everyone else?
I don't know about that. I use a direct drive wheel, and it beats me up pretty good. So yeah, I think I kind of like that. It's like having a little bit more feedback in terms of what the car is doing. But yeah, it certainly is bumpy. Although our setup, the guys who made our setup, they did a good job of softening it up enough that it didn't throw the car around as much as you might expect. So I think the setup helped us.
And having used one of my friend's direct drive wheels at one point, it's possibly the best home gym you can get. You're not going to be too tired for race 2. Do you think you can improve?
I don't know if I can improve much on this, because there's a couple fast guys like Stefan that crashed out of that first one. So if those fast guys stay on track, then I'll just wait for my opportunities and hopefully have a good race.
All right, well, best of luck in race 2. Go well, but most of all, have fun. Anyone to thank? Any shout-outs?
Most of the guys that run this league, Joel Martin, Mark Leeson, and Richard Colomb, they just do a great job. I think the size of our grids shows the great work they put into it. So thanks to them.
And thanks to you for having a word with us, John Morgan. Jake Sperry, we've got another race coming up in not too long.
No, we certainly don't. And this one is for all the cookies in the jar. The championship decider here at Sebring. It could go either way. It will either be Bill Lawrence or Stefan Roschen, either two-time reigning or another championship reign. You do not want to miss this. We're going to step aside briefly here at the 60 Plus Racing Adventures League here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live, because we'll be back with the finale after this.
I got for Christmas this book written by Joe Soward called The World Atlas of Motor Racing. It's basically a coffee table book that's just got every circuit on planet Earth, along with history of each circuit, you know, organized by where they are, what countries, and so on. And it's just fabulous reading. But I remember reading about this circuit, the Nürburgring, which I didn't really know much about even back then. I think we were working on the original IndyCar racing. I mean, I knew a little bit about the Nürburgring because, of course, Niki Lauda had crashed there, Jackie Stewart was legendary there, but this book made it sound like just an incredible place. For anybody who's in motor racing, it's like the ultimate challenge. It's basically still a throwback to the way circuits were back in the 20s, which is very long, super challenging, extremely unsafe. But I remember that, I mean, for most of the circuits, they had track maps, kind of get a sense, oh, this is what this track looks like, and they'd have photos and whatever. The Nürburgring, there was no track map because it was too long. They just talked about different sections of the track and the Flugplatz, you know, where the cars caught air, and Foxtrot, and, you know, all these famous spots. I just thought, geez, I gotta learn more about this track. And wouldn't that be a cool thing to be able to drive this in a sim? Of course, back then it was, we were still working on the original, you know, essentially the Indy 500 code base. And the cars weren't 3D. I mean, the physics for the cars was mainly a 2D model. And the Nürburgring has tons of elevation change and, you know, all kinds of camber changes and banking and what have you. And plus, it seemed incredibly daunting. I mean, it's one thing to build an oval or even a short road circuit, but, you know, a 14-mile track with mountains and villages and everything else to go through. It just seemed like, yeah, well, maybe someday. But it was kind of the inspiration for Grand Prix Legends. Because in that book there was not only the Nürburgring, but they talked about Monza, of course, and, you know, all these classic Grand Prix circuits from the 60s. And it really was a different era. You know, when they raced at Spa, Spa used to be out into the countryside between the farmhouses. There was like some high-speed sweeper, you know, going right through a village, you know, with basically hay bales protecting everybody. I think 3 tracks really that are still around that are from kind of the 20s and before. Indianapolis is the oldest, built in 1911. Monza and the Nürburgring, which was built between the wars, basically as a public works project to help put people to work after World War I. And really prior to the 20s, they used to just race on open roads in between towns. The Nürburgring was sort of still built when that was the way circuits were done. It was like this challenging, you know, take your car up and over a mountain and through the woods. But it's still very dangerous. I mean, it's windy and narrow and hundreds of blind corners that you absolutely have to know, you know, where is the road going when I can see it again. It takes a while to learn. It's sort of like learning about 5 circuits. It's quite a challenge. I can remember at the time trying to figure out how do we even get a good map. We eventually got our hands on some survey data that the track had and were willing to share with us. So there were some drawings of certain sections of the track, not the whole thing because they didn't have it all. Aerial photos a little bit, and then just a lot of video and photographs. And the geometry, I think, just itself was about 6 months, if I recall. And, you know, building all the objects and trees and everything took a pretty long time. But even back then, we weren't building nearly as many objects as actually exist around the track. I mean, it was sort of like, well, you know, this is a little village, so we'll put these buildings. We've got some pictures, and we know there's this building and that building and this billboard. I mean, now each track is a significant piece of work. It's a whole team taking tens of thousands of photographs and laser scanning the entire track, and then also talking with people who really know the track, the drivers who drive it all the time. You know, where are all the the reference points that they use, and make sure, you know, they're always telling us, make sure to put this in, you got to have this piece of tree, you got to have this piece of paint.
And then getting this right, because this falls away in the exit, you can't see where your exit is. So you kind of have to get all of those reference points right to get to know where the exit is.
You know, so now it's a very different process. What you capture with the laser scanning is the expertise of the road builders. I mean, the guys who went and graded that circuit and built all the, you know, the road grades and banking and everything, they know how to build roads. And it's not a trivial exercise. When you're out there driving around, you realize, oh, everything is banked just right. There's nothing artificial about it. You know, in the old days, when we were making video game tracks ourselves, we don't have expertise in building roads or grading the entry to a corner or what have you. It really is pretty incredible to be making these sims in this industry that has changed so much just in 25 years. I mean, back when I first was thinking, oh, we should build the ring, there wasn't enough memory to do it, you couldn't render it, wouldn't have been fast enough. I mean, the graphics, we go back and look at those old games and it's just like, it's laughable. I mean, how did anybody even think that this was fun? But to be able to just continually, you know, raise the bar the way that we can in this industry, and you know, now you go out there on the ring and it's as though you are there, especially if you have a 3-screen setup. I mean, you'll be at the ring. It looks like the ring, it will almost feel like the ring. I remember once having a dream when I was doing Indy 500. I had a dream about a flight simulator where the graphics was just incredible. It looked like real graphics, and I just thought, oh geez, you know, we're way behind. It's like, how are we gonna do that kind of graphics? And then I woke up and I was like, whew, I don't have to do that. But the funny thing is, now the graphics that we see today are far better, I'm sure, than what I sort of envisioned as being, oh, that would be the most amazing thing that you could do. I mean, now it's like real life. You look at it, and I mean, really, if you don't look really closely, you can't tell. It's really cool. And I mean, we keep being able to do more and more and more stuff. So hopefully it'll just get that much better.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. Before you can get on track, you'll need to calibrate your wheel and pedal set. You'll need to do this in iRacing even if you have already done this using your own controller software. Prior to entering the sim, make sure you've downloaded and installed the latest drivers from the manufacturer's website. Once that's done, follow these easy steps to calibrate your controller. We recommend calibrating in a test session, so pick a car and then click test. Don't go into a practice or official session. The last thing you want to do is have you go on track and crash into another car. Once you're in your test session, click on the options button. You'll then see input calibration. This is where your calibration takes place. Start by clicking on the steering button. You'll then be prompted to turn your wheel fully one direction and then another. Make sure you place your wheel back into its centering position before hitting done. Now, you'll be asked to turn your wheel 90 degrees to the left. Make sure it's at 90 and hold it there while hitting done. For pedals, click on the pedals button. Here you'll be asked to press the throttle all the way down and then release it. You'll do the same for the brake and clutch pedal if you have one. For the gearbox, you'll first be asked to set buttons for sequential shifting. Once complete, a prompt will ask if you have a H pattern shifter. If not, hit no. If yes, click it and you'll begin to map the gears individually. Once you've completed these steps, you are calibrated and ready to go racing.
And then there were two. It is Stefan Rosgen versus Bill Lawrence. Two former champions, one reigning champion, and all to be the 60 Plus Racing Adventures champion. It cannot get any simple, or any simpler, shall I say. Bill Lawrence needs first position to take the title. If he doesn't get that, then he will be relying on Stefan Rosgen to finish no higher than second, and he will get the title sorted. Stefan Rosgen must finish second or higher, and the title is going to be back with him once more. Qualifying is about to start here at Sebring for the final time this season, and my goodness, has this track proved that it can be difficult to get right, and this qualifying here could be the most dangerous and the most difficult one they will face all season here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Jake Sperry, David Haynes, Paul Smith behind the cameras. David, this is an important qualifying session. If you didn't get it right in race 1, you've got to do it now in race 2. You've got drivers out there fighting for victories, fighting for pride, but you've got a championship battle in there as well. And this is going to be a very, very tough final race for both Lawrence and for Rosgen.
Precisely, Jake. Stefan Rosgen showed us he can put in a quick lap in qualifying. He can put in the fastest lap of the race in race 1. He's not shy for pace, and he's going to need to put together the lap of his life in this qualifying session, because I don't think anything but starting on pole for race 2 would give him any confidence. And he's very, very tail happy on screen there. He's pushing this car hard. I'm not sure that lap will be his golden lap. He's got plenty of opportunity though.
But he is on his out lap. They've only just started. Rosjen gets a massive tail wiggle and has to catch a slide coming out of Tower Corner. So Stefan Rosjen is not doing the tyres any favours then on the Pro Mazda, and that's not going to be useful for his 2 flying laps if he's starting to scrub the rubber off very, very early into his progress. But this is going to be something that he will be keeping an eye out on and will be just trying to go as quickly as possible. Jos van der Ven will be a major challenge. Won the opening race, is mathematically out of the championship picture here, David, but he can still be a nuisance to the drivers up front.
Exactly. For example, if Bill Lawrence is leading the race and Stefan Rosjen needs second, if Jos van der Ven is in there potentially taking away points from Stefan Rosjen, or could even be taking away points from Bill Lawrence, those two are going to have to be very careful around him, and he's someone that they need to beat to grab the points that they need for their championship.
And this Sebring circuit, you know, a former airfield, brings a lot of comparisons, especially with no elevation change here, to the likes of an American Silverstone. Some may argue, I'd even say it's a lot more difficult than Silverstone due to the fact that you've got that change in surface. Rosjen on the asphalt, right now, but there will be patches where he moves to concrete, and that different braking property is going to be such a difficult challenge for these drivers to get correct.
And I have to tell you, Jake, that the bad surfacing here, it is intentional compared to Silverstone. So Stefan Rosjen, fantastic riding on board with him. Helmet matches the car paint that he runs every race. He's definitely pushing it on this lap. Inside wheels on the curbing there, clear of the curbs there. Tower Corner, this is one where he does really well and where he set up some overtakes in race 1. Runs all the way out to the exit of that curbing, but takes no more of the dirt because you can't go over there with steering input in with the throttle wide open. That slows you down. Brilliant precision towards the apex, but with a hint of oversteer in the driving style of Stefan Rosjen.
Certainly does. First sector 34.7, second sector 44.4. Rosjen is looking to set an absolute worldie as he makes his way to Sunset Bend and looks to try and put on everything possible to get what he wants. Through he goes and looks to put the power down and is searching for a magic lap time. The lap time that he gets himself is a 1:57.492. It's fastest for the moment. Robertson a full second off as he looks to get himself a good chance, as now we look further back to Bill Lawrence in a number 17 machine who did not set a flying lap. So now he's right on the back foot, having to set it. Let's go on board with that 17. This is a very vital lap here. One mistake and this becomes a case of hoping Rosjen does not get first or second position. Lawrence has to change the agenda.
Exactly, there's plenty of places around here in your big 2-minute lap where you could get an off track or something else that would invalidate your lap as a qualifying time. On the exit of here, for example, Tower Bend, that's one where it's very, very possible. So Bill Lawrence needs to be fast and he needs to be clean. He has to be precise and measured.
But he's already half a second down in the opening sector. That's not what he was looking for. A 35.2 compared to a 34.7. He is falling away and he needs a very good time because Manning Grinnan is there in second position. And the last thing that Bill Lawrence needs to see is drivers getting in front of him, especially with the likes of Van der Ven. Only in 6th position so far in qualification. through Bishop, now heading towards Le Mans, and the Ullman straight he goes. Second split time comes in. That's a 44.4. It matches on that sector, so the second sector able to pull it back. This is currently good enough for a 57.9 if he can match the final sector, and second position in qualifying. Lawrence needs a miracle out of the final corner. I'm not sure even Bill Lawrence can find himself half a second here at Sunset Bend. I don't know many people who could. On the brakes, right-hander at the corner of 1004 lines and trying to put everything on the exit. This one is a good solid banker lap which he needed here from his second lap, as it is a 157.798. He did really well in that second lap. Robertson moved up to third, but Lawrence gets second and crucially keeps his rival on the front row right next to him.
And I might be imagining this. I think Stefan Rostjan improved, but Bill Lawrence, he's where he needs to be right now, but he needs to be able to take points away from Stefan Rostjan in the race. Second place is a good start, though.
Yep, Rostjan did not manage to improve on his second lap, so he will stay at a 157.4. In terms of drivers who are out there on laps, Bob Kern is one of those drivers in the number 6. He did a 201.1 on his first lap as he crawls his way around Sunset Bend, trying to get as much grip as possible to get back onto the power and get on going again. Over the line, Kern will go 159.2. That's good enough to put him up into 9th position so far in this one. Greg Garris is yet to set a qualifying lap time in this one as we look at the number 48 machine. That 48 machine belonged to Gianni Rispaldo of the Italian Turtles team, making his way around the final corner and his run up towards the line. Currently hasn't set a lap time yet, but he does a 158.7. That's a great lap by him. That puts him right up into 7th position, and that's a good time from Gianni Rispaldo. I like this Gianni. He's found some pace.
Indeed, found some kind of rhythm around this track. That's a properly respectable lap. We saw maybe 25 cars take the start of race 1. So to be in the top 10, it's a very, very good place to start, and maybe gives you more options for when you could take your pit stop. Starting higher, you've got more options available to you. This is just about maybe wrapping up everyone's qualifying laps, is it, Jake?
Well, just Greg Garris is the one driver who hasn't set a lap time, so for the moment, Greg Garris knows that he's just got to be the one to set a time. He won't get a second lap in, so this is a one-lap, hot lap shootout as he makes his way through the second part of the Fangio chicane and now towards Cunningham Corner. This fantastic 90-degree right, and he's pretty good there. Maybe could have used a little bit more track on that outside, but of course, these vehicles are so highly strung, David. You've got to be so careful. It can snap back at a moment's notice, as is the case with most Formula cars when you grow up the ladder.
Precisely. Saw that in race 1. Guys getting it unsettled over some of the bumps. When you throw it into the corner with a lot of commitment, with a lot of steering angle, when it does go wrong, it goes wrong quickly. So you've got to be precise and you've got to be measured. You've got to be practiced as well. It's looking relatively clean, so I think this will definitely be a valid lap as it stands at the moment. We'll see in not too long. Is it a quick lap? Is it something to challenge the top 15 or top 10 on the grid for race 2?
221 kilometers an hour into the final right-hander. We were seeing vehicles in the race doing 236 there at the front of the field, so definitely down on pace. 201.4, that is 18th position. All vehicles then are complete on their qualifying laps. The grid shall come up in just one moment's time. The final grid of the season will be as follows. Stefan Rostjan gets pole position, 157.492, where he needs to be, but Bill Lawrence is doing everything he can just behind in second. Mark Robertson is in third, teammate to the Bill Lawrence number 17 machine, with Manning Grinnen in fourth. Jos van der Ven, winner in race 1, could only manage fifth, with John Unsby in sixth. Gianni Rispaldo is in seventh, with Jack Turner in eighth position. Bruce Poole is ninth, with Bob Kern rounding out the top 10. Joel Martin and Kenneth Baldwin are 11th and 12th, with David Riley in 13th, with Donald Fitterer in 14th position. Jared Florison's 15th, with Paolo Preto 16th. Charles Gillet, Greg Garris and William Lee, the last of the drivers who have set qualifying lap times. There were issues for John Morgan in qualifying, meaning that he could not set a qualifying lap time, and that is going to be one which he knows that it's going to be this important race indeed. For the time being at least, though, this championship is still alive, despite some of the drivers thinking that it's already over. It is far from over. That gap is 7 points in favour of Bill Lawrence. And as we all know, Rocegen must finish in the top 2 to take the championship. Bill Lawrence, to confirm it, must win the race. It is that simple to get this one sorted out. The crucial thing, though, here, Mark Robertson had a horrible race number 1 here, David, out of the title picture, but a rear gunner who can help Bill Lawrence.
And another mistake from Stefan Rocegen means that will be another car taking points away from him, maybe stymieing his run back up through the field. There's plenty of situations, plenty of circumstances where that would be a very big help to Bill Lawrence. Another cliche that I just have to throw out there. You wouldn't believe us if we scripted this. You'd say it was too close. We're down to the last race of the season. Our 2 championship hopefuls, first and second on the grid. 14 laps of a beautiful track. I can't imagine anything better, Jake.
Nor can I. And this is what these races are made of. You've got to push as hard as you can for 14 laps worth of racing. Those drivers behind, they have each to their own a right to fight for track position, and they can be real pains in your backside if you are fighting for that championship, because ultimately they will be racing for pride. Drivers like Manning Grinham proved that he had the pace. Drivers like Mark Robertson did have some pace. Van der Ven certainly had pace to go and push, and we know how good John Unsby can be on the defense. So this one is going to be a tough race to get correct, and every corner matters. Sometimes you may even say every part of this pace lap is going to matter here, David, as fuel saving was a massive issue in the opening race.
Yep, precisely. No driver adjustable engine mappings in the cockpit. You'd just put it in 6th gear, be very, very gentle on the throttle, and you could definitely save fuel that way on the pace lap. Might save you critical seconds filling it up in the pit stop. And one thing to note about that, to my understanding, it's the fixed setup that limits the starting fuel. It's possible to pit on lap 1 and fit enough in to get to the end. Lots of strategy options, and we saw a few people, none of our championship hopefuls, none of the guys at the pointy end of the field, but a few did take their pit stop at the end of lap 1 in race 1. So a wide pit window from lap 1 till about lap 10.
Very, very true. And that pit stop window is going to be so carefully monitored between now and the end of this race. When does your rival jump? When do you decide to go onto the lane? Do you have enough pace to go and win this one? Do I have to go and make that 30-70 move to try and make a championship work? All of that will be in the minds of Bill Lawrence and Stefan Rocegen. Bill Lawrence from Club Canada, Stefan Rocegen from Club Diatch. It's in the pace of the Diatch driver in the number 60. Roof pace car goes down onto the lane. Green flag goes. It's a slow getaway, and Bill Lawrence is going to be jumped instantaneously over the start-finish line. Jos van der Ven's going to get it as well, and Robertson is going to challenge for the lead into turn number 1. Big arcing wide line then from Stefan Rocegen. Does he push a little bit too wide? Ever so slightly, gets on the grass, but that's going to allow a chance then for Robertson to get back in. He backs out of it. Van der Ven goes down the inside of Bill Lawrence at turn number 3, but Lawrence holds on to 3rd position. He loses 1 position. Not ideal, but now he's got to fight hard for this one, David, as they battle behind.
Jos van der Ven was very aggressive through turn 1, got bottled up later on. Stefan Roostjen's not pulling a huge gap over Mark Robertson, but critically, Bill Lawrence now being worried by Jos van der Ven, who when he's quick, is very quick. Right now, as it stands, if they finished in this order, the championship would go to Roostjen. This is all to play for, and the fighting is fierce.
The fighting is very, very fierce. You can see how Roostjen is a lot more comfortable going through the mid-speed corners. Gains a couple of tenths of a second on the Mark Robertson number 43. And that's going to be really crucial. He's got to break 1 second and draft range, because once draft range is broken, that's it. He can run away for the hills from now to the end of this event. As things stand, everything has now fallen back line astern as far as Richard Valley in the 69 machine trying to get past William Lee. He's not close enough just yet as they run in towards Ullman and towards Bishop. Now Bill Lawrence starts thinking about getting second position back once more. Knows he's quicker than Mark Robertson. Pulls to the inside to go and make this move, and should have it at Sunset Bend, and will do, as Robertson does lift and yield as they go through the final corner. For the moment though, how much has that start cost Bill Lawrence? Because that gap has extended over the opening lap of this event. This may have to be done in the stops. Gap as they cross the line is 0.950, just in draft range.
And Jos van der Ven looking every which way behind Mark Robertson. Mark Robertson runs a bit wide. Jos van der Ven carries a teeny bit more. Will he make the lunge from a long way back? He wants to. He can't quite do it. But he is all up in the mirrors of Mark Robertson for third place. Down the main straight.
Into the tyres goes Mark Robertson, and just like that, he was having a good run in third position, but he is all over the curb. He gets himself that middle of the car over, really can't have any grip, the car bobbling over it, and just like that, it spins into the tyres, and suddenly the Bill Lawrence rear gunner has gone and malfunctioned, and now it's down to Roostjen versus Lawrence, legit on the road with van der Ven, who wants to get back to another race victory.
Precisely, kept the throttle in as he hit the curb, and he's bombed hard, just like the B17s that they used to train here at Sebring. Jos van der Ven, what's his gap to Bill Lawrence? What's Bill Lawrence's gap to Stefan Roostjen? That gap is growing out. Roostjen pulling a little bit on Bill Lawrence, and suddenly Bill Lawrence not as strong as he was, and with some work to do.
With some work to do indeed. Bruce Poole, though, a little bit further down in the pack, is trying to find a way past Kenneth Baldwin. This is the battle for 10th, 11th and 12th position. Now 9th, 10th and 11th, because they're trying to get past Bob Kern as well, and they're not finding much luck at the moment around getting the number 6 as things look. So that's not ideal. Manning Grinnan as well in the battle for third. He's staying with Jos van der Ven. That's not going to be helpful at all for Jos. He's dragging along unwanted company with him. But that, for Stefan Roostjen, is going to be very, very useful come the end. But once more, it's the final sector that is keeping Bill Lawrence alive here in this one. Gap, 9/10 of a second. He took fractions out of Roostjen that last time by. Bill Lawrence's car is built for top speed.
Exactly. Blink and you would miss the difference between Roostjen and Lawrence on that lap. Near identical lap times. And that's not quite enough for Bill Lawrence to claw that gap back down, make sure he's in that slipstream. But luckily for both of them, they are pulling away from Jos van der Ven in third. Bit of a lock-up from Roostjen there, though, going into the hairpin.
Yeah, he did have that little lock-up, and maybe the first sign of a crack beginning to see on the proverbial glass of Stefan Roostjen's driving ability on the brakes into Cunningham Corner. This beautiful 90-degree right-hander as we look a little bit further behind, as for the moment we've got ourselves Bob Kern. I think he's had a little bit of a moment in the number 6. He has, and he is on pit road. He got himself straight on. It was a blown engine trying to shift down. Bang goes the engine, and just like that, out of the event.
Indeed, they might get that towed back to pit lane. Not sure he'll come back out. And another spin from Bruce Poole there. flicks it around quite well. No contact with the barrier, but lots of positions lost for Bruce Poole there.
Yep, that was at Tower Corner, so he gets in and he's losing it on entry, so he's maybe a little bit too aggressive with his turning. There's a lot of factors that can be caused. Anti-roll bar, certainly one of them as well. So Bruce Poole makes himself look a little bit silly there going for a spin, but there's not much you can do once it starts going into a spin like that. He now drops behind Ken McIntosh in the field, so a lot of work now for Bruce Poole to try and get himself back into this event. Gap at the front now is up to 1.5 seconds as Mark Robertson gets out of the way as a form of lap traffic. This race starting to splinter out a little bit as Paolo Preto battles Charles Gilly for 14th position, which is now actually the battle for 12th position on circuit. My apologies. But Charles Gilly here having a good run of things, +5 already.
Yep, and +3 for Paolo Preto. He's hopefully looking at making that +4 coming through into turns 2 and then 3. Paolo Preto, a tighter line through that long corner there. Oh, but off the track goes Charles Gilly. They'll go side by side, but I think Paolo Preto will have the momentum, he'll have the outside, but I think he can brake deep enough to make that position stick. Indeed, just he can.
He can, so Paolo Preto does well. Fastest lap for Stefan Rosjen, pulls out half a second over Bill Lawrence, finding his footing here in this second race and doing all that he needs to do, and there will be no draft helping Bill Lawrence from this time onwards. He has now got to try and find a way on pure pace alone to pull his way back in to the number 60 car of Stefan Rosjen, and this is starting to get a little bit more desperate the more that these laps tick by, one after the other after the other. Donald Fitter in his own scrap. This is with Gianni Rispaldo. This one for 10th position, or 9th position, sorry, out on the road. Rispaldo in 10th, wants to find himself a way through, and looking at where he is and looking how patient that he's been, that 1-1-1, let's remember this one was not in the first race, has only decided to show up for race number 2 here, David.
Yeah, but the way the point structure works, if you have a good race too, I guess you can get away with it. Look at this, Rispaldo taking a much later entry, trying to keep it tight, and then flow it through the exit. Not sure it works, but he'll have the slipstream coming down the main straight. Won't get close enough into turn 1, but absolutely in the mind and in the mirrors of the driver ahead.
Jack Turner is one of the first of the leaders to come down and make a pit stop, so deciding for the early call at the end of lap 4, start of lap 5, as Ken McIntosh gets under pressure from David Riley down the inside. Position taken away as McIntosh loses one more. Out of the way then goes Jack Turner, looking to get himself back on track. He was in around 7th position, around the likes of Joel Martin and Kenneth Baldwin, which is not a bad little place to be. And it's in fact, Kenneth Baldwin this lap has lost the position to Joel Martin. I wonder if he's had a mistake somewhere out on track. The answer is no. So Kenneth Baldwin just behind Joel Martin. That gap around 3 seconds there or thereabouts. So I'm just keeping an eye on this one here, David. This one, maybe a slow burner, but there's still a lot of battles to be won here on this track.
Indeed, Federer versus Rispaldo, which is now 8th position, maybe still net 9th after it was Jack Turner who pitted from in front of them. But there's a different strengths between these drivers. Rispaldo definitely going into the corners very quick. Fitterer now pulling just beyond that second gap because he gets the power down very well on the exits. A car like this with lots of grip but not an insane amount of horsepower, there's different driving styles for that, and it's just working for Fitterer right now.
It certainly is. Still no takers then onto lane to cover off Jack Turner from those at the front of the field. We saw how late everybody decided to come down in and make a stop in the first race. Not really so much here in the second as things stand. As we look at Lawrence trying to pull that gap back, he took half a second of his own straight back out with a 57.3 compared to a 57.8 of Stefan Roosjen, gap down to 1.2. That was a poor lap actually by Roosjen, 7/10 off of his fastest, and Lawrence responded with his fastest lap of the day, which won't count because he did accrue an incident point.
But it still counts for what that gap is. Trying desperately is Bill Lawrence to pull that gap back down to a second. I'm sure he knows, as it stands right now, Roosjen will be the champion. All Bill Lawrence can do right now to secure his championship hopes is get up there and take that position away from Roosjen. That's the only way he's going to take points away from Roosjen and potentially make himself a champion again.
But he knows what he needs to do. He's been in this position before, as has Stefan Roosjen. These are the two greats of the 60+ Racing Adventures Leagues. They are the ones that fight for the title so often when it comes to this championship, and they both want it hungrier. They want it more than the other driver, so they have to do whatever it takes to get themselves into that position, which is going to get them the title. For the moment at least, Bill Lawrence is hoping that he can claw himself in under a second, and that final sector has been all Bill Lawrence all day long. So that's going to be crucial come the final lap. Neither of them come onto the lane, as keep an eye on this. Over the line they both go. It was a 57.2 from Bill Lawrence. That gap's down to 9/10 of a second now. Roosjen, 57.5. Bill Lawrence is finding something here as the halfway stage will come into view at the end of this lap.
A 57.2 from Bill Lawrence, blistering pace, and for 2 laps in a row, he pulls gap out of Stefan Roosjen. I wonder if that driving style from Stefan, maybe it just heats up the tyres quicker, but then keeps heating them up and some of it falls away from him, because Bill Lawrence couldn't match him earlier in the race, and now he can. That gap critically within that second. Who blinks first for a pit stop? Surely if you're Bill Lawrence, you have to stay out as long as you can. If you're Stefan Roosjen, you don't want to get buried in the traffic.
The one thing that Bill Lawrence said that he struggled with all season long was the pit stop. It's the weakness that he has, and he wants to be as close to Roosjen as possible to react as quickly as possible in this event. And now we have side by side as Kenneth Baldwin and Joel Martin go at it, heading towards Cunningham Corner. On the outside, Kenneth Baldwin comfortably gets it on the brakes, as there's not much that the Team Otto car could do there, with Mark Robertson 1 lap down just behind them. So a good change of position there for for Kenneth Baldwin, sorry. He now moves himself up into 6th position as we look further up forward to Bill Lawrence, who again finds himself really, really close to Roosjen and clawing that gap back down.
On our screen right now, though, this battle, number 98 car leads that was at 10, so Wally Molesby up 13 positions, potentially not setting a qualifying time, starting at the back of the grid, not letting that stop the monster car monster his way up the field, putting Greg Garris behind him, and Charles Gilly and Ken McIntosh, also 4 cars in that train. So on your screen right there, and Bill Lawrence, wow, a 57 dead sets the fastest lap of the race to claw more gap out of Stefan Roosjen. I don't know what Bill Lawrence has done, but he's found some speed within himself, and now he's found the draft of Stefan Roosjen. It is heating up, as I imagine we've got about 2 laps to go before these guys will have to pit for fuel. Pit stops imminent for these guys, Jake.
This is the mark of a champion, being able to claw back down a gap, trying to force a mistake out of the reigning champion. Bill Lawrence using all of his expertise to close that down, and a 1:57.002 says that is fastest lap, and it's some fantastic driving that we have seen from him so far. Can he find the magic, as Wally Molesby is down in on the lane, as is Ragnar Steinmoen, as both of them look to get out and away from circuit, as it looks like for the moment there is going to be not much change at the front, but that gap is slowly being reeled in. Just behind that, though, Joel Martin and Mark Robertson, that one not for position. Gap started to open up as the pit stops come in. Jack Turner trying to find a way past Ken McIntosh. This one, of course, Jack Turner's already made his stop, and he makes his way through.
Yeah, Jack Turner's car fueled to the end, or so he hopes. Again, these guys, they've got to keep the pit stop time down, only take as much fuel as they need, but they need to make sure they take enough, and that definitely caught people out in race 1. I don't see how this will be any different.
I don't see how it'll be any different either, but I think that Stefan Rosgen may have just responded in kind back to Bill Lawrence. It was a 57.7 that last time by, and that was a good 0.09 of a second gained by Stefan Rosgen. What he wanted, keep that gap at the high end of the 1 second margin. Leave your opponent no chance to come in. One is Kenneth Baldwin onto the lane. The other is Joel Martin, and they'll be looking to come out around with Jack Turner, who makes his way onto the Ullman Straight for his 8th time in this event. Important pit stop coming in because Jack Turner has not had the best of races so far in terms of lap time. 58.7 was his last one. If you look at the likes of Kenneth Baldwin and Joel Martin, I think he's actually going to be in a place to get there. I scratched my original opinion, as now they're going to try and get going. Baldwin gets there first.
Great jump off the lane there. Baldwin, I'm seeing as 10.8 seconds stationary or so. That's plenty of fuel. The guys we saw running out were taking 7 or 8 seconds of fuel in race 1.
And Turner is through on this as Grinnan has gone off into number 47, and that's at Cunningham Corner. Replay on screen, so easy to do. Gets himself through the corner, tries to put the power down. The vehicle's trying to get away from him, trying to put it on a little bit too quickly, and as such, into the wall he goes for the second time this evening. And just like that, this is going to be a long road home for Manning Grinnan, a familiar sight here at Sebring.
The driver's telling us that these cars are relatively compliant over the bumps, but still it looks like there's got to be some management of the rear tyres, because we're seeing plenty of people picking up some oversteer. They're not careful in how they feed in the throttle and how much steering input they carry.
Look at the lines being taken by your leading two. They both come in. How aggressive are you, Bill Lawrence? The answer is he is very, very pedestrian with that yellow cone. He was not all the way to the end of that line, but now that gap did look like it was over a second. When they run through pit road, it's 0.9 of a second. So that's going to be telling. Roshan did gain on that last lap. Lawrence should hit his box just second, and look at that. Perfect from the pair of them. A little bit slow onto the box, maybe you could argue, from Bill Lawrence. Maybe that's what he's got to work on as two vehicles go through. Behind, Jos van der Ven comes in, and just like that, gap extends for Stefan Rosgen because he is a lot quicker onto his box. There is where Bill Lawrence is struggling, and just like that, that gap is just agonizingly over 1 second.
Interesting though, Stefan Rosgen's driven the whole race so far with no draft. Bill Lawrence has had some. He would have saved a tiny bit more fuel. I don't think Stefan Rosgen's one to miscalculate his fuel. Be interesting to see how they go, but it's basically the situation it was earlier, just over a second. And these two need to battle it out on track for the remaining 4 laps. Whoever finishes ahead will basically be the champion.
Bill Lawrence's pit stop was 0.2 of a second slower. It was a 10.6 for Bill Lawrence, a 10.4 for Stefan Rosgen. Rosgen had the quickest stop. Bill Lawrence knows that he's got to do the work again, and he's running out of time. He's got 5 laps to go. It's 4 at the line, and that's not much at all here in these sorts of terms, and he's not made any decisive moves as he misses the apex there at Tower Corner, giving Rosgen even more advantage here on the run towards Bishop.
It's probably the longest straight here up at the Ullman Straight, where it's absolutely critical to be as close as you can, get that draft, pick up a couple extra kilometers an hour, and see Rosgen gets a great wide entry, puts the power down. Bill Lawrence tidy though, and he's just within 0.9, and Rosgen trying to break the draft. That is That shows you how much he wants this, because those are... Oh, that's an aggressive move, trying to break that draft, but it doesn't quite work as Bill Lawrence pulls back a tiny bit of gap, and it's all to fight for.
It is all to fight for. A serpentine on the Ullman. You normally only see that at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The gap, 8.5 tenths of a second. He is desperate, but Bill Lawrence is clinging on like a leech that will never let go, continuing to suck the time out of Stefan Rosgen's laps, and is making sure that at every given stage he is going to fight this championship all the way to the bitter end. It has been Rosgen leading almost every single lap of this race and still retains the race lead, but the lap traffic in front is two teammates to Bill Lawrence, Bob Kern and Mark Robertson, who are both battling for position. They shouldn't influence anything. They are gentlemen here. Big heavy cut from Rosgen, heading through that big hairpin. No slow down penalty, crucially, but what is telling is the fact that Bill Lawrence is closing.
Indeed, it's now as close as it's ever been, 6 tenths or so. But behind them, Jos van der Ven was 2 seconds quicker on the pit stop. Now 2.5 seconds off the leader, 1.5 seconds off Bill Lawrence. I don't think he has any qualms if he catches this to mix it with these guys, try and take his own race win. These guys are not clear of Jos van der Ven, who could mix it in this fight and keep it interesting. If he got ahead of Bill Lawrence, took the points away from him, it would go to Stefan Rosgen. So it's our two leaders battling, but now Jos van der Ven wants to come in and make it even more interesting.
And a mistake at Le Mans for Bill Lawrence, who missed the first apex of the triple corner. Now this could have put things in jeopardy as Rosgen now looks to try and extend that gap. Has he got enough then on this lap to break 1 second, which is the crucial death knell in the proverbial coffin? Answer is yes, by 78 thousandths of a second. 57.9 from Lawrence, 57.7 from Stefan Rosgen, as now Rosgen cannot afford to make mistakes. He's still within that realm. He's still got that ability, but look at Jos van der Ven. He's only 1.3 seconds back, and he could change absolutely everything. If he could get past both of them in the final 3 laps, then this one could be all change once again. Jack Turner, in all of this, mind you, is in 4th position. He's done amazingly to get to 4th. Unspi 5th, Martin in 6th. We'll keep an eye on that one, but it is still Stefan Rosgen who does go wide and pushes a little bit too wide, which gives Bill Lawrence a chance back in again.
Wow, a mistake at a very, very critical time from Stefan Rosgen there. Bill Lawrence will smell that now. 3.5 tenths. He can't afford a mistake now either, though. He needs to pass Stefan Rosgen in the remaining laps to be champion. He's got the closest opportunity he's ever had. He just needs to make no mistakes, needs to stay in that draft when they get to the Ullman Straight and try and maybe make something happen into Sunset Bend. If not this time, next time, but it's got to happen soon. It'll be 2 to go when they cross the line. Bill Lawrence is close, but Jos van der Ven now 8 tenths behind him. They're all concertinaing up together. Stefan Rosgen leads on board with Bill Lawrence, but Jos van der Ven is lurking behind.
Does Jos van der Ven dare to insert himself into the title picture with 2 laps to go? For Stefan Rosgen, he will hope, plea and pray that van der Ven gets involved. For Bill Lawrence, he knows time is of the essence. He has a great run coming off of the exit of Sunset Bend. That gap down to 4 and a little bit tenths of a second. The gap to Jos van der Ven almost 1 second entirely. Now Bill Lawrence is right in the wheelhouse to start thinking about making moves here with a lap and maybe 3 corners less to go here at Sebring. Through 3, now through 4 and through 5, and Bill Lawrence struggles in this opening section. This is where Stefan Rosgen has to build the gap.
Little bit of understeer, dare I say aero push potentially. Bill Lawrence not getting the fastest run through there. He gets the benefit of the slipstream down here. He'll be late on the brakes, but not too late. That's what caught out Stefan Rosgen. Jos van der Ven waiting, biding his time, potentially licking his lips.
Potentially, indeed, to Cunningham corner they go, as now Rosjen desperately needs a little bit of a gap. He kicks the one cone on the left-hand side as he goes through, using all of his road tact and a bit more leniency given as well, as Lawrence now desperately tries to chase to Tower through the right-hander, and nothing changes. It is still like they have been, almost like they have, all three of them, been on tow bars this entire time, knowing that they cannot change that gap as much as maybe they thought they have. This is where Bill Lawrence shines, and he's got a very good run through the first part and through the second. Can he unlock the third? Answer to that one is yes. He was a lot tighter than Rosjen, who had to go all up over the curb. No DRS, remember, and when they next cross the line, it's the final lap of the championship. Serpentine for Stefan Rosjen. He moves to the inside, now moves back to take his racing line, desperate to break the toe, but he still can't shrug off Bill Lawrence, who has refused to let go throughout the entirety of this race. Hard to the pit wall goes Stefan Rosjen. That gap of 0.4 of a second, look at it now. It's down to just 3.5, and maybe Bill Lawrence has a shot into turn number 1. No, he does not, as the final race of the season hits its final lap of the season. Rosjen must win. Lawrence must win. Whoever wins takes the title. It's as simple as that at this stage. Bill Lawrence, currently in second through turn number 5, needs to find something, and at the moment he's not going to be close enough through Big Bend to get himself the move at turn number 7. Bob Kern and Mark Robertson in front are not close enough to affect anything in this championship battle. It's going to be down to driver skill only as they get on the brakes. Has Rosjen pushed it a bit too far? Answer is no. He's just about slowed it up. He was magnificent on the brakes through there, but Lawrence is using the toe to his advantage to get back. A run here through Fangio. Now to Cunningham. Can he think about making the move? At the moment, the answer is going to be no. And he starts to make mistakes. He runs a little bit wide through that corner, trying to find the grip as he's stuck right in the dirty air of that Pro Mazda in front of the number 60 from Club Diach. Now through the right of Tower. Is there anything? No, it's going to have to be at Sunset Bend, and it's a dangerous corner if you want to go and make it happen. Now through Bishop, and now you've got to be careful here about the fuel numbers. Who's running out of fuel? Jos van der Ven. He will not play a part now in this one. There is lap traffic just in front of Stefan Rosjen. That's not going to be helpful. That's William Lee, who's also out of fuel. And wide goes Bill Lawrence. The chance falls away, and now there is one sunset left on the horizon for Stefan Rosjen, who has held and weathered off the most dangerous of storms from the Canadian. And through Sunset Bend, Stefan Rosjen will go, and this is one of the most deserving title drives I think I've seen in a very long time. Stefan Rosjen is the 60 Plus Racing Adventures champion, and what a race we have just seen, David.
Incredible racing, action down to the wire, and that is why Stefan Rosjen is now a 3-time 60 Plus Racing Adventures champion.
Look at John Unsby, though. He's going to fight for this one. He doesn't quite get down to the inside. Trying to find a way through. He's right up to the wheel, trying to get it to work, and he just doesn't quite have it. That is Joel Martin with some great defense there to finish that one off and take the podium position.
And John Unsby will be 4th place. Jack Turner grabs 5th. He was watching that battle very closely. All of them now coming across the line.
All of them now starting to find their finishes. Richard Valley and Ragnar Steinmoen have their own little battle, and I think out of fuel, yes, out of fuel is Richard Valley, and Steinmoen is going to steal one more going to the line, and that is a very, very telling steal indeed too. And I think the last of the drivers will not have any changes at all. I think we can call unclassified results at this stage. Not necessarily classified. The last few drivers are to come over to the line as Riley crosses. Baldwin now to cross, McIntosh, Wolsby and Gilly as well. We've also still got this fight, Kern versus Robertson, 2 teammates battling it out together, and you have to say here at this stage, David, that these two, they have worked incredibly hard today to try and make things happen. It has not been either of their days, as they're going to have a scrap to the line.
Neither of them could be of use to their teammate Bill Lawrence and his championship fight, but last lap of the race between teammates, I'm sure they would like to finish ahead of each other just for pride, so I think that's Robertson goes to the inside. No, sorry, that's Kern on the inside. Robertson gets the better run off the corner wide. I think he will grab that position ahead of his teammate Bob Kern.
Certainly will. Classified results then up on screen. What a showdown that was to decide the title, and once more it falls in the hands of the number 60 machine. Stefan Rosgen takes it by 5.1 seconds, but my goodness, it was closer than that every stage, apart from with 2 corners to go. Bill Lawrence gave everything. It just wasn't enough. Joel Martin finishes third with John Unsby in fourth. Jack Turner, great drive from him, in fifth position with Manning Grinnan recovering to sixth. Donald Fitterer gets seventh with Gianni Raspaldo in eighth. Gerard Florison gets ninth, and Paolo Preto rounds out the top 10. Bruce Poole and Ragnar Steinmoen make 11th and 12th, with Richard Valley running out of fuel in 13th with Richard Coulomb in 14th position. Greg Garris gets 15th with David Riley in 16th, with Kenneth Baldwin 17th ahead of Ken McIntosh. Wally Molesby, Charles Gilly there in the 20th position. Mark Robertson and Bob Kern had a scrap to the line, 22nd and 21st respectively. Jos van der Ven ran out of fuel on the last lap. He finished 23rd. William Lee ran out just in front of the leaders. Maybe the point that took Bill Lawrence out of the equation. That is 24th. John Morgan and Kenneth Duma failed to make the start. My goodness me. What a championship we have managed to find ourselves with here. That is everything that you want. And let's get the champion into talk right now. Stefan Rosgen, you had to fight for 14 hard laps to get that title, and you finally have it in your grasp.
Yes, that was a very hard fight for me. I couldn't get him out of my draft. I had him out of the draft once, and then I made some little mistakes, and he was back in again. So that was very close.
Do you feel that there was anything to do with the lap traffic that was running out of fuel at the Ullman corner?
No, I don't think so. No.
But it is a third championship, an important third championship as well. It's back-to-back titles. You're looking to defend your crown again for the next 60 Plus Racing Adventures League. Just how important is it to collect this third title, especially how hard this championship has gone, and right down to the wire as well?
Oh, well, it was indeed a very hard championship, this one, because Bill was always very close behind me. And I really didn't know if I could make it today, because the track is so difficult and so bumpy, and you never know what will happen. But in the end, I was lucky enough.
Well, Lady Luck will be shining down on you. A shout out and a sponsors maybe. Who do you need to thank for your championship that you have now accrued?
Yes, thanks a lot to you guys at RaceSpotTV for the great shows you deliver. And thanks for all the admins who make it happen.
No worries at all. Stefan Rosgen is your champion here in 2018. David Haynes standing by with an unlucky loser in Bill Lawrence.
Bill, great race one. You clawed the gap closer, but just couldn't hold it in race two. We thought it was possible we might have two-time champions, but instead it's Stefan Rosgen. How tricky was it out there, and what did you have to do to be able to grab that race win in race two? What fell apart for you?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Stefan, a 3-time winner now. I really would have loved to have had the second spot. I thought I had him lined up pretty good for the last lap, and then some traffic got in the way on that notorious corner that you just have to hit right. And fortunately, I didn't lose it there, but I lost Stefan from the draft. Otherwise, I think we would have had a good draft up the back straight, and it would have been a real exciting finish.
Well, with 12 weeks of racing, 24 races, for it to come down to a last lap battle for the win, does that sting to come so close, or is it good to have such a hard-fought, respected championship?
No, it's I would have loved it, of course, but it's just fun to race with these guys, and to find myself challenging some of these top seeds is good. I'm thrilled that I was there. That's about it.
And quickly, tell us about fuel strategy and about pit strategy for this race. You said not your strong point, but I think you did all right in this race.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to come in when Stefan did, which we did. We were down to less than a lap of fuel, so I knew we both had to come in. I just wanted to keep on my limiter, get in there hot, and I figured he'd go for 2 gallons. Some people were saying you could get by with 1, but we were pushing the limit, so I thought I'd better do 2, and the gap remained the same in and out.
So, Bill Lawrence, runner-up in Season 8. What do you think Season 9 might have for you?
Well, I'm hoping there's some viewers out there who are over 60, maybe thinking about joining the league, and the league might grow a little bit. And I hope I can make most of the races next season. There's only usually about 1 or 2 seasons a year I can complete. So I think I can get most of the next one in, and just hope I can be consistent.
My own father qualifies for the age category. I might have to send him to race against you. I'm not sure he'll challenge you quite as fiercely as Stefan Rostgen has. But while we've got you on air, anyone you need to thank, any shout outs, and anyone you need to say hello to?
Well, I think I did that in the first interview, so I guess I'll sign off for this season by once again saying, if anyone out there would like to join and you're over 60, come on in. It's a great group of guys, and there's racing throughout the field. Your dad will find someone to race with whether it's the front or the middle or the back. It's always good racing and good coverage by RaceSpot.
Thanks so much. You guys definitely put on a good show in this last race for anyone. A great advertisement for this series, 60 plus racing adventures. Jake Sperry, we've got a couple more people to still talk to, so I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, joining me now is the driver who came home in 3rd position, that being Joel Martin. Joel, a great little battle coming to the end there with John Unsby, managing to hold off with some fantastic defending right at the death. Did you expect it would be 3rd position come the final lap?
Not at all. Not at all. I just try to be in the top 10. It was great today, though, I got to tell you that.
Well, it was certainly great for you to have that fantastic battle, but let's talk a little bit about your race in the early stages, because it was one where you started from 11th, had to do a lot of work to make your way up through the field. There are places to overtake here at Sebring, but just how difficult is it to place your car in such a position, especially in an open wheel formula like this, to make the moves happen?
I kind of just let them happen. I don't try to force the issue in any case, particularly, well, again, it's an open wheel car. But I don't think I really passed that many people on pure speed. It was just other people had problems, and maybe I picked up some time in the pits.
Season 9 comes up very soon. You end this season on an almighty high. Do you feel like you can take some momentum over to the new season?
I certainly hope so. I haven't determined what the new season is going to be, but very close to what this season is.
Well, very close you hope it will be. But for 3rd position, any shout-outs, any sponsors, anybody who gets it done for you?
Well, I'd thank the admins, but I am the admin. But I'd like to thank all the other competitors and all the guys that do the things like the Facebook page, the forum page, and we have our own website, and there's just a lot of things that everybody does to make this a great, great league.
No worries at all. Joel Martin then with a great 3rd position come the end of this one. David Haynes standing by with a driver who came home ultimately at the end of this race in position number 6. It's a good recovery drive actually there from Manning Grinnan.
Well, Manning Grinnan, down 2 spots from where you qualified, but it could have been much, much worse for you. If indeed we do have Manning Grinnan, do we have you? Are you there?
It seems we do not have Manning Grinnan here in the commentary booth with us. But David, let's just look back on that for a championship decider. You will struggle to find many series that can produce championship ending races like that, and that goes down as one of the great sim races of the year.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic to have our 2 contenders, battling it out on the final lap, and it came down to the second to last corner. Fantastic. You can't ask for any more than that. And part of what made it really good is how they do the points structure for this championship, where they have the 2 races back to back, and your championship result is your best finish between the 2 races. It meant that whatever happened in the first race, it was unlikely that would seal the championship, and there wasn't something to play for in the second race. And that's exactly what we got, where in the second race, could still be Bill Lawrence's, it could still be Stefan Rostjan's, and we didn't know right until the end. And I don't know about you, don't know about our viewers, but I was on the edge of my seat for that one. Fantastic racing, great respect, and serious championship implications.
There seriously were, but unfortunately here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live, that's all we're going to have time for. But to those who get it done here for us, firstly to Vern Designs, the official graphics partners here at RaceSpotTV, along with ATVO and Apgeneer, the official graphics engine. Our live timing and scoring was brought to you by Nick Diss, and you may have seen that though for the Danish Championships, if you were trying to pick that up. That's the other broadcast that we had going on here on RaceSpotTV this evening. We also have to give a big shout out to Simon Grossman for the animations, and Istvan Ballo's track cams 22. Make sure that you check them out. But that's not it for us here on RaceSpotTV, and of course the iRacing Esports Network as well, because we've got ourselves some Xfinity action at, well, shall we say, from about now, 5 hours time. So keep an eye on that one as we head to Vegas for a bit of gambling action there. We've also got tomorrow night our prime time finale in the IMSA Sports Car Championship. That's heading to Monza. Join Connery Manick and Stephen Burbage for that one. We got the PCDC 6 hours of Brands Hatch on Saturday. Join us from 1:30 PM GMT for that one, as well as a double header on Sunday. Sports Car Open heads to you from the Nürburgring, along with the season finale of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup, which will be at Mount Panorama, Bathurst. But from the time being, that's David Haynes and Paul Smith. I'm Jake Sperry, and Stefan Rostjan has earned a title which many drivers will never have to fight that hard for to try and earn their stripes. Good night.